Hello beautiful people of the internet and welcome to the kitchen. A little bit of a different setting today because we're going to do a little bit of a different video for this week. Today I'm going to show you how to make delicious vegan cookies with only 3 ingredients. I really wanted to have a delicious recipe that I could make that was not too difficult, that was vegan, and that also did not require any bananas to make. When I just moved to Antwerp, I found this blog that showed how to make really good vegan cookies, and I made the cookies and they were delicious. And the second time that I wanted to make them, I completely lost the blog and I couldn't find it anymore. So with the knowledge that I still remembered from the last time, I kind of changed it up and made my own. And I noticed that you only need 3 ingredients to make really good cookies, and that's the recipe that I'm going to share with you today. We've all been self-isolating, and this is one of the ways that I have been kind of curing my boredom. And the best thing about it is that you have a delicious treat afterwards. So since I know that most of you are still social distancing, self-isolating, I thought I'd share this with you so you can maybe have a very easy recipe to make and delicious cookies to eat afterwards. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do today. So now you might be wondering, what are those 3 ingredients that you need? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's actually quite obvious. So the first thing you're gonna need is plant-based butter. I like to use this one because this one already has a little bit of salt inside, so I don't have to add it into my batter later on. The second ingredient you're gonna need is sugar. I just use white granulated sugar, but I can imagine you can use whichever sugar you like. And then lastly, you will also need some flour, obviously. This is all-purpose flour, but again, you can use whichever one you like. You can use gluten-free one or a self-rising one. Doesn't really matter as long as it's just flour to bind your dough with. And that's it, that's all you need. Now, of course, there's lots of other things that you can add in to make your cookies a little bit more special, but this is the basic ingredients that you will need to make the basic dough with. And I thought I'd share that with you before we get into the more advanced stuff. It's not advanced, I'm not a baker, I can't bake for shit, so if I can make these, then you can make them as well. Alright, let's get to it then, shall we? So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to take your butter and you are going to take about half of what's in this little plastic container, and you are going to put this right into the bowl. Oh yeah, maybe that's a good thing to say as well. A mixing bowl is very required, but I thought you'd figure that out for yourself. Maybe another good thing to say is that I don't have exact measurements to make this. The thing is, I don't remember exactly what the measurements were, so I just wing it until it feels and tastes good. For this amount of butter, I usually like to use about 8 tablespoons of sugar. I made the last batch with 10 tablespoons and I felt like that was a bit too much, so I'm just gonna take 8 of them. I think that's going to make it a lot better. So it may look like a lot at first, but I promise you this is just the right amount. So what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna get very handsy and I'm gonna go right in and mix everything up. I do recommend washing your hands before doing this. As we're all baking, I figured you'd already do that, but it's a good thing to remind people of because washing your hands is important in these times. So I'm just gonna go right in there and I'm going to mix the butter with the sugar. You just keep doing that until all of the sugar is completely gone and you have one gooey, sugary mess. So when that's all mixed up, your mixture should look something like this. So what I'm going to do now is take tablespoons of flour and just add it into the mixture. Now, like I said, I don't have any exact measurements for this recipe, but since I've been making these for like 6 months now, I know when they're kind of ready. So the thing is, you just keep adding flour to your mixture until the batter, so the cookie batter, does not stick to your hands anymore. Because as you can see now, it's like very messy and sticky. From the moment it doesn't stick anymore, you know that it's ready to go. I realize now that this might not be the most easy and most instructional video that I've made. Maybe it's not the best idea for me to make this video either, since I'm not really good at baking and cooking stuff. But you know, if it's fun, then who are you to tell me what to do, right? The dough is looking absolutely beautiful. Now, this is the fun part. So you either leave the dough as it is right now. In that case, you can pop it in the fridge, leave it in for a little while. Maybe put on your oven already so it can warm up. But the fun thing is that this is the part where you can kind of customize it and make it however you like it to be. My roommate really likes to add a little bit of chocolate powder to the mixture, just because that way it gives a bit more of a chocolatey flavor to the cookies without it breaking the texture of it. I personally like to add a tiny bit of vanilla extract to it, just to give it that little bit more of a vanilla flavor. Now this one in particular is actually not real vanilla. This actually has lots of vanillin inside, which comes from a tree bark if I'm not mistaken. And that's actually really nice, because that way it's a lot more cheap to produce, first and for all, and second of all, I'm not gonna die when I use it. Now of course this is better if you already put it in when you mix the sugar and the butter together, but since I wanted to show you how you can also make the cookies with just 3 ingredients, I didn't do that. And I promise you that this way it's gonna be good as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make a little hole in my dough, and then I'm gonna put about, oh yeah, that's definitely a lot. I wanted to put a teaspoon in here, but it kind of leaked out of the little bottle, so I think this should be enough. I actually think this is already a bit much. So when that's in here, I just like to mix up the dough once again. Now this is usually enough for me. This is usually where I start and bake the cookies. But like I said, I know my roommate really likes the chocolate powder, so I'm gonna try and make some marbled cookies as well. I've only done this once and didn't really work out that well, so I thought I'd try it again just to, you know, challenge myself a bit. So I'm going to separate the dough. I'm gonna try and make 2 kind of equally parts with it. And I'm gonna put this one to rest. Now this one I'm going to divide once again, like this, and I'm going to add some chocolate powder to this piece of the dough, and then just mix everything up until it has one consistent brown chocolatey color. So when everything is kind of a consistent color, it doesn't have to be perfect since we're going to marble them up anyway. I'm going to add this with the rest of the cookie dough in my mixture bowl, and I'm going to set this one aside in the fridge so it can harden a tiny little bit. In the meantime, I'm going to put on the oven and already preheat it. This is also where things get a bit blurry because I don't remember exactly how warm the oven needs to be for it to work. What I usually do is just preheat it until 200 degrees Celsius, and then I just put the cookies in. I noticed that it takes a little bit longer for them to bake, but at the same time I feel like they're a bit more crunchy on the inside and less soft, which I personally really like. So that's usually how I do it. Now I'm gonna show you all the details a bit later on. For now, I'm gonna pop the dough in the refrigerator, and I'm gonna first warm up the oven. So yeah. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. I have taken the dough out of the oven again. The oven is still warming up. That means we still have plenty of time to roll our little cookie balls and prepare the tray before we actually put it in the oven. I'm going to start with the normal dough because I feel like that's going to be the easiest to work with. So I'm going to put this aside for now. So the first thing we're going to do is take our oven tray and line it up with a sheet of baking paper. So now that that's done, it's time to take our dough and make small little balls with it. I usually take about this amount. I think that's even much, a bit less. I just make small little balls with it like this, and then I gently press them until they're a bit smaller, and then I just place them on top of my tray. And that's it. The trick is to not make your balls too thick, because if you do, the inside is still going to be mushy, and that's not what you want to achieve with these ones. I mean, unless you like mushy cookies, in that case, go right ahead. But I personally like them best when they're more crunchy. You can make the cookies a bit bigger if you want to. You can make them a bit smaller if you want to. But I find that about this much usually does the trick for me. And then you just keep doing that until you have no more dough left. Alright, so now that all of our little piles of dough have been put onto this little tray, it's time to pop the tray in the oven. You want to know what the best part is about making vegan dough? It's just that you can eat the dough like this, because you don't have any chances of getting sick because of the eggs, because there is no egg, so. Oh, I love dough so much. So you can also just make the dough and eat it like this. I don't recommend it, but you totally could if you wanted to. Anyway, that's not why we're here. I came here because I'm going to show you how to make the marble dough next. It's actually very easy. We have our two separate pieces of dough right here, and we're actually going to mix them together, but not too much. Thing is, when you mix them together, you're gonna get like this beautiful marble effect. Just don't do it too much, because then you'll get what I had last time, which is like only chocolate, and that's not what you want to go for. You actually want it to be very beautifully marbled. Now, since the cookies we're gonna make are quite small, I do recommend to marble them a little bit so that you can actually see it. But since last time I did a bit too much, I think I'm going to start with just this for now. Now we can still see how the marble turns out in the cookies. Now when it comes to the cookies in the oven, I honestly also don't know how long you have to leave them in for. I know this is great, isn't it? What I normally just do is I leave them in for about 10 to 15 minutes. I check on them regularly, and when the ends of the cookies start getting golden brown, that's usually when you know that they're ready. So now that we've mixed our dough together and that we have the other cookies in the oven, I'm going to turn off this camera for a bit, take a little break, and then I'll be back with you to take the cookies out of the oven. Now, when you took the cookies out of the oven, you're gonna take a little, well, it's not really a tray. How do you call this? Is it like a raster or something? Anyway, you're gonna take something like this to put the cookies on top of. That way they can cool down on the other side as well. Now, you can eat them warm if you are very impatient, but I do recommend storing them like this to let them cool, because then they're gonna taste a lot better afterwards. If you're gonna put them on a flat surface, I feel like they're still going to be a bit moist underneath, and I like my cookies to be crunchy. What I'm gonna do next is turn over the paper like this, and then I'm going to take the leftover batter and make little marbled cookies with them. The same way as we did a bit earlier, I'm going to take a little ball and I'm just going to roll it around, flatten it a little bit, and then put it right onto the tray. Look at how pretty this one looks. This is exactly the marbled effect that I was actually looking for, so this makes me super happy. Alright, so now that we're done with these ones as well, it's time to put the second batch of cookies back into the oven. The marble turned out fantastic in this batch. I'm actually super pleased with how this looks like. Look how beautiful they are. So I just took the second batch of cookies out of the oven as well. So I just put them onto the tray to let them rest and cool a little bit as well. But in the meantime, the first batch of cookies is completely done, which means that it's time for a taste test. You know what time it is? What time is it?
Tasting time.
It's taste test time! And what do you think? Do you like them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I need another one.
No, you still have one.
Whoa, whoa.
Sure, take one. I'm sorry, Weefy. They're not for you. You'll just have to do with little pets. Oh, they're really good. Maybe it's also a good idea for me to say that these are actually sand cookies. So they are made to be a little bit more crumbly and a little bit more crunchy than normal sugar cookies, I guess. But I personally really like that. My grandma is so good. So yeah, there you have it. That is how you make vegan cookies with 3 ingredients. Now, as you saw, you can always add in more if you want to, but this is how you make them. They're super easy, super delicious, and perfect for self-isolation if you need a snack and you want something to do. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, even though it was a bit different than usual. And yeah, I guess we'll see you again in the next video then.